Hi everyone, Engineer Pat 5290 coming to you with a product review. The first N-scale product review ever. This is an engine I've had in my collection for quite a while now, and I have not done an N-scale review until now. But today we're going to be reviewing and running the Conrail C39-8 Rivet Counter Series in DC mode by Scale Trains. The General Electric C39-8 was a 6-axle diesel electric locomotive produced by GE from 1984 to 1987. This engine actually became very unpopular with train crews, with many different factors of a rough ride, overheating, frequent turbocharger issues with the fuel system, and so many other reliability issues. It was built for 3 years, as mentioned previously, from 84 to 87. And 161 were produced for 2 railroads, Conrail and Norfolk Southern. Norfolk Southern ordered 114 of the C39-8s. All have been retired. Later on, Norfolk Southern ordered 25 of the C39-8E, which was very similar to the later C40-8. All of those have been retired. The only one that is left of that class is 8680H, which currently resides at Altoona as a GE test bed. Conrail ordered 22 of these locomotives, number 6000 through 6021. The 6003, as you see here, was built in July of 1986, which later became NS 8201, which has long been retired. There is only one true C39-8 that is left in operating condition. Apart from the test bed, Pennsylvania Northeastern Railroad's ex-Norfolk Southern 8212, ex-Conrail 6021 is the last and only active C39-8 in active use in the North American continent. 15 Norfolk Southern C39-8s were sold to a railroad in Peru, and many of them have been rebuilt by shortening the radiator. So there are some still active out there, but there's only one that is active in North America. So, and that is the ex-Conrail 6021. A little bit more on the C39-8. It had 3,900 horsepower, and it was powered by a V16 7FDL 16-cylinder engine, driving a GE GMC 187A2 main alternator. And the alternator was driven by 6 GE 752AG traction motors with a gear ratio of 83 to 20, connected to 40-inch wheels, which allowed the C39-8 a maximum speed of 70 miles an hour. And the fuel capacity was about 3,900 to 4,500 gallons, depending on the customer aspects. And it was a very cool locomotive because they were known as humpbacks, and I'll explain more about that in just a moment. But this locomotive is not mentioned much often now, as many other railroads had other locomotives like the C40-8s, the C40-8Ws. But this was one of the most unique GE locomotives that I have seen. Unfortunately, all of those were retired long before I came along, but it's cool to have one of these in part of my N-scale collection. All right, so we've talked a little bit about the C39-8, its years of when it was built, and also the 6003 in particular. Let's talk about Scale Trains' rendition of this beautiful model. First, I am a huge fan of Scale Trains products. I have several of them in my collection now. And this is actually my first pre-ordered item from Scale Trains. And I'm very impressed by the design, I'm impressed by the construction, and I'm also impressed by all of the details that this locomotive has. So we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up and work back towards the rear of the locomotive. First off, the paint job is fantastic. Scale Trains does not disappoint here. Lots of separately applied details going on, and I'm going to shine a light a little bit throughout when I turn the locomotive. As you can see, the front of the locomotive is nicely done, as you can see there. Lots of separately applied details here, as well as a separately applied plow. Even the ditch lights are added as well. Lots of sand fills and even the headlight on top. And even if you look, the windshield wipers are also separately applied, which looks really nice. Safety tread on the deck for walking. And we also have, I don't know if you can see this, but the steps look really good. They don't have holes in the safety steps, but they do look very nicely done. Got the brake wheel on the side of the locomotive. And if we go up on top, we have a small antenna. And even the cab interior looks really nice as well, as you can see as the light is shining inside the cab. And as we turn around, we have all the separately applied detail all over the fuel tank. And even the trucks are nicely done. Look at this. Separately applied sand lines, separately applied brake lines. This looks very nice by Scale Trains. The F is on the front, indicating the front of the locomotive. A GE placard right there on the side of the cab. The Chris Conrail logo. This is the actual original Conrail logo. And you can see we have all sorts of separately applied signage all over the locomotive that the light is picking up. And these are legible under a magnifying glass. So now we turn the locomotive. And as you can see, the back of it is nicely done. I'll shine the light back on it. As you can see, the back is nicely done. No rear ditch lights on here, but we have marker lights on the back, a nice stamped Conrail stamp on the back, lots of grab irons, even some brake lines, and even the coupler looks good. Lots of safety tread. On the top looks really good. The smokestack is open where you can look inside. A separately applied RS3L horn. And the back of the engine the side of the engine, is more or less like the engineer's side of the cab, with just a few minor differences. More separately applied details on this side of the locomotive as well. As we come back to the front, loving the cab design. I love the cab design on this particular locomotive. It's different than your standard C40-8 or your B40-8. They were known as humpbacks, and they used to run these engines long hood forward, and they look really nice running long hood forward. If you've not looked at a picture of one of these things running long hood forward, it will really amaze you, because these look really good long hood forward. But I've ordered this in the Conrail scheme just because I grew up with Conrail as a kid. I never got to see a C39-8 in operation. So to have one of these on my layout is really awesome. So I love the way Scale Trains did this. I was really glad they did this release. But all in all, this is a very good engine. I've had this locomotive since December, and it's also my first rivet counter engine. So I'm very, very pleased for the way they did this model. I cannot stop looking at it. So the last thing we will do before we take it for a spin on the layout is BFOTE, best feature of the engine. Have to say, details. Scale Trains has really stepped out of their comfort zone and gone back into the blueprints and paying attention to all the details on these locomotives. I mean, the paint job always was, that's my second best feature. But since the locomotive does not have sound, it's basically everything about the engine. You know, the details are really good, but the LEDs are awesome as well. The LEDs in this locomotive are awesome. The motors have great pulling power as well. I've been very impressed with the drive. And I've put some miles on this locomotive. I have 2 or 3 Scale Trains locomotives in my collection. This one, my Santa Fe -9, as well as my CSX Tier 4. And Scale Trains does not let me down. So BFOTE this time around, details, the lighting, and the paint work. I'm very, very pleased with this locomotive. All right, we've got the 6003 in the lead, and we have the Santa Fe 5088 behind him. These two run really well together. The 6045 that I have, the -8, runs really well with it as well. So I had the Santa Fe on the track following a coupler upgrade, and we're going to allow these engines to run together. Got a nice consist, and I got power to the track, and let's take it for a spin. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up the review and running of my C39-8 by Scale Trains. I hope all of you enjoyed it. I decided to do an east-west theme for the contest, and I know everybody likes to see a Santa Fe locomotive, so I said I'm going to throw a Santa Fe locomotive in here for a change. So I'm overall very pleased with this locomotive. I'm glad it's a part of my collection, and we're going to be seeing this engine a little bit more on the layout. It runs really well with several locomotives that I have, and I'm doing a lot more contests than what I used to do. So I've been trying a lot of new things, and glad to see this baby's pulling like a champ. So anyway, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. And if you're new, please remember to like, subscribe, and even tap the bell for all the notifications. A lot of videos coming out soon. I hope to see you all soon. And until next time, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching.
Hear that sound of that clickety-clack as they travel along down the railroad track, with the little boxcars being pulled and back, and that little puff of smoke coming out the stack. I love toy trains. I love toy trains. I love the way they look and the way they sound, stopping at the stations in every town. I love the way they travel all around and round. That's the reason I love toy trains. I love to hear the sound of that clickety-clack as they travel along down the railroad track, with the little boxcars being pulled and back. That's the reason